Campaigning for the 2024 United States general election is well underway, with Democrats and Republicans fighting to win the next presidency, Senate, and House of Representative elections. As the Republican nominee, former President Donald Trump, and presumptive Democratic nominee, incumbent Vice President Kamala Harris, look to court undecided voters, one major voting bloc often goes overlooked. African Americans and African immigrants, colloquially known to pollsters and analysts as the black vote, have remained a target demographic to both parties.
The parties have been pretty split when it comes to civil rights and when it comes to issues of equality, equity, and diversity, where the Democrats have been far more progressive than Republicans, building on sort of that civil rights legacy of the 1960s, which has led Black voters more often than not to wholeheartedly support Democrats. As Republicans there's been little detraction from the Democratic Party since then because of the Republican Southern strategy in the 1960s.
Members of the then Democratic majority made passing the Voting Rights Act, which extended the right to vote to Black Americans, a priority in the 1960s. 60 years later, that legacy continues to influence African American voting habits.
That generalization comes from a shared experience. And so a lot of research and scholars have written about the way that the legacy of slavery continues to inform Black political attitudes. It's really not until the last 50 or 60 years that our political institutions have pushed towards a new vision of democracy in which all people, including Black people, are viewed equally and included in the political process. And so it's really because of that legacy that Black people in this country tend to behave more similarly than other groups and more homogenous when it comes to their political attitudes and political behavior.
Racial demographic shifts in the United States within the last 30 years have only underscored the importance of African American voting participation. Especially amongst southern states and swing states, final vote counts often change by only a few thousand votes year over year.
Typically the Black community is said to make up about 13% of the American population, that's voting age adults. However, in certain states, as we know, the Black community is more concentrated and has a larger voting power. You could talk about Michigan has been in the American news lately, where Black voters make up 10 to 20, sometimes close to 30% of the population. And if they get out and vote at or above that level, say they represent their population proportion in the voting age or in the constituency, they can make a real difference in those elections.
Leading up to the general election in November, Towler and his team of pollsters and data scientists will be the first major group since the 1980s to be conducting panels and polls specifically looking at Black voting participation and election attitudes in the United States. Anthony LaBruto, VOA News, Washington.